Welcome to the ABC Music Talk podcast. Once more, we return to the disciplines category with a focus on a subject that has come up a good few times during previous episodes, and that is education. But first, a reminder for you all to go Rota your video assets. Rota is for artists, managers, labels, or anyone in the music industry who needs to create video content for promotion or monetization. Rota makes it fast, easy, and inexpensive to do all of that in one place. Head to www.abcmusic.co and click the Rota logo on the homepage to access a 10% off discount for the service. Now, my guest in this episode is one of the leading figures in making sure the next generation of executives in the music industry know what's up. Welcome to the show, founder and managing director of Talliard Education, Harry Leckstein.
Hi,
how are you doing?
Great.
Thanks for doing this, man. I realise today is a busy day for you.
Oh, it's not a problem at all.
Yeah.
To help out Alex.
So I'm really excited about doing this particular one, and the reason for it is, if you haven't figured it out, this podcast is all about helping the next generation of executives. It's the sort of thing that when I came into the industry, I wanted to listen to, but it didn't exist. Mainly because podcasts didn't exist, and also really people weren't on the internet for content.
Right.
Yeah. So are you ready for that?
Let's do it.
Come on, educate me. How does that sound? So what I always do is I always ask people about their kind of journey to this point, so to speak. I want to know about how you got to here. I think storytelling is a huge part of the learning that I went through in my industry, and that obviously comes from people that have been in the industry for a while.
Yeah.
So I was going to prepare for this with you, and I spent about 20 minutes on LinkedIn, which, as you know, kind of puts this sort of chronological order to kind of the jobs that people have had. Yeah. Now, I kind of gave up with yours because it felt like you were doing 26 jobs at one time.
I've always been doing that kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah. So, and I'm guessing that it's because it was what we're going to reveal in this, that you've had a slightly sort of non-conventional way into it, mainly because you've been kind of inventing an awful lot of what's kind of transpired. So can you walk me through
in some as well, and creating a few sort of after hours clubs, and which was incredibly easy to do with so many people interested in going out and exploring this new scene at that particular time.
Yeah, sure. So dance music, I didn't know that about you. So you're a dance music fan.
I'm all sort of music fan.
Well, these days, I'm sure.
I just got absorbed into that whole scene by default, having just sort of arrived there to study English as I was there to do, and fell into the whole sort of 89 to 1990, 91, 92 scene that was happening there. From the sort of raves out past Ashton Court down to Tewton Mendip and into the city, and clubs like the Moon Club that became Lakota, and the Black and White and St Paul's, and the Thekla, and Cozies, and the whole sort of Bristol scene that was kicking off there really inspired me, and plenty of other mates of mine as well. So that was my sort of introduction into running events, I suppose.
Right.
I found myself out in Los Angeles after that in about 93, 94, where again another group of people came together and we found a venue in Central Hollywood.
How did you get to LA? What took you out there?
When I was studying, I was also reading film scripts to supplement some income for a production company based in London, and I thought I would go out there and explore the scene out there, and wanted to work on some film productions and some TV productions, and eventually thought I would want to go on into film. And in many ways I have sort of done stuff with film,
which we'll get to.
But I found myself out in LA. My old man knew somebody who had a business apartment. It was a 2-bedroom apartment in North Hollywood, and he was only there 2 days a week, and he said, well, you can just give us a small amount of rent and basically just use the other room. So I turned up with a couple of £100 in my pocket and an open return. My old man said, I'll get you the open return, and then if it doesn't work out, you could just come back, but see how long you can last.
Oh wow, what a great opportunity!
Yeah, it was great. And we after about 6 to 8 weeks actually had opened a club called Divine Culture on Hollywood and Ivar with a group of other people who ranged from a second assistant cameraman who'd made some money because he was working on Terminator 2 and had saved up a lot of dough, and a guy who built trade show sort of stands for a living, so I had access to a lot of cool materials,
Yeah, sure.
especially lightweight fabric materials, and we dressed this disused sort of Russian gym space, about 6,000 square foot, that was given to us. These guys used it for sort of pumping iron during the week, but didn't need it at the weekend, and we'd turn up and convert it into a sort of rave venue.
Interesting.
And opened at midnight on a Saturday, and we're the latest opening club in LA at the time. We closed at sort of midday. So we cracked on all the way through the night.
It went all the way through.
Yeah,
There
there were a
was like
couple of
day
clubs on a Sunday that sort of opened up after we closed, but no others that sort of ran through from Saturday night into Sunday. And it was a great experience. It was really good.
Amazing. So come on, next.
From there I came back.
That was the beginning.
Yeah,
And then,
I ended up working on some films and stuff as well. Various things from sort of production assistanting to extra work and walk-on parts and things like that.
Oh, yeah?
Loved it. Yeah.
Anything that I can see?
No, absolutely not.
Come on,
no,
man, there must be. Like, we've got the
There's
internet now.
There's a really dodgy version of me in an LAPD uniform in Unsolved Mysteries.
Right,
You'd have to dig very hard to find.
Have you got an IMDb profile?
No, I do not have an
That's a
IMDb.
shame.
No.
That would have made
Thank
it
God
easier.
for that.
That would have made it much easier.
I came back to London around late '94, and a friend of mine was working for ABC News, and I was looking for something to do, really, just to earn some keep, really. And he said, "Oh, it's really good. They actually pay you to train you, pay you while you're training, and then the rates are pretty good. You just do these shifts." And it was the satellite coordination desk, so it was you'd sit with the producer with all the dark room with all the TV screens in front of you, and you'd be coordinating feeds that would maybe come from an edit bay down the corridor, or they could come from somebody standing out in the middle of a war zone somewhere. It could be from anywhere, and it was very exciting because you never knew each day what was going to come at you, or the fact that you would start with a story at the beginning of the day, and by the time you got to the evening rollout for the news item, the story could have changed in so many different permutations. And so I said, I'd love to meet these guys, and I trained up and started freelancing for them. And at the time, everybody used the same equipment. So before long, I was freelancing for CBS and NBC, and they all had these, like, what was their 6 o'clock news, basically, but it would go out at sort of 11 p.m. our time, out of, based out of New York, most of the news there. So I was freelancing doing that for quite a few years, actually, for 3 or 4 years, and really, really enjoyed it. Covered a lot of stories from the assassination of Yitzhak Rabin, the conflict in Rwanda, the death of Diana. And it's a really pivotal sort of moments, and you get sort of drawn into the energy, incredible energy that sort of news and the whole machinery of news generates. And I really loved it. It was kind of like a mini film every day, all condensed into a very short period of time.
Yeah, amazing.
But I got to a point where I was actually I was working for Associated Press, APTV as it was known at the time, and I remember going upstairs and chatting to my boss and sort of saying, how do I get into the more executive side of this, the sort of developing and creating programs as opposed to just coordinating satellite feeds and productions. He said, well, most people have got a business masters of some sort, like an MBA or something like that. Like, you should think about looking into that. And I started thinking for you to do. And so I ended up, I went to look at Imperial College. They had an MBA in what was known as entrepreneurship and innovation. And I thought, well, actually, that's kind of like, it rings a lot of bells for me. I love that whole entrepreneurial sort of side of things, just creating projects. And we were always sort of, I suppose, innovative with music, innovative with lighting and staging in the way that we sort of put stuff together with the whole rave thing. So I went to see them, and I was talking to the dean, a bit like we're talking now, and he was listening away, and he goes, I don't know why you're interested in going back into news. Sounds like you should focus on the music industry and everything to do with music that seems to be your passion. And frankly, it's 1998, so why don't you come here and do a piece on why and how the internet is going to change the music industry? And I'm looking at this sort of 70-plus-year-old guy who's the dean of the college, and I was kind of like, whoa, that was incredible. Inspiring, And he goes, well, I'll tell you what, I'll offer you a place if you come and do that. And I went, okay. So I did. I did my MBA at Imperial, and my main focus was, at the time in '98, was how the internet was going to be affected by the advent of the digital era. And my thesis, I suppose you call it at the end, that you have to write, was called The Download Road to Where, and posed the theory that actually downloads were a very short-term redundant model, and that we were moving into more of a streaming model, and what streaming meant as opposed to downloading, but also more in the point of how we were pivoting from being a vertical product-based industry, a vertical food chain where a handful of companies owned a lot of the mechanism, to very much a horizontal service sector as a result of streaming. We were going to be providing services that many other competitors in different spaces, like subscription-based TV, Sky, Virgin, whatever, had been doing very successfully for a while, and kind of probably looking at the music industry going, gosh, why don't you just do what we're doing? But at the time, in 98...
They owned infrastructure, though, didn't they? That was one of the slight different... Because, I mean, the music industry used to own infrastructure. They used to make the hi-fis and things like that. Thorny and Lie and all the rest of it. And then they kind of started to lose that in the digital era, which is kind of part of our woes right now, with Apple and Spotify being in the power seat, right?
Yeah. Well, definitely, I think all changes of technology that sort of play around with the barriers to entry and the barriers to exit to a market will introduce new players, new kids on the block, and those new kids on the block are normally driven by the channel to market, and so the new gatekeepers to the market and market audience are normally the new players when you look at those kind of things. So anyway, I did this paper and posed this sort of theory, which was, I suppose, pretty radical in sort of 98, I guess. And,
well, I mean, that was, you think that was still, like, the CD boom was still going up.
Yeah.
People were still making a lot of money every day, more than they did the day before. Yeah. And I don't think that they were, and they, from my understanding of it and speaking to some other people,
I was like, well, hang on a minute, no, it was all based around the premise of sort of Moore's law, really, of this sort of ubiquitous broadband and the speed with which computerized chips were accelerating, coupled with the sort of underpinning of fiber optic or just broadband capability, was going to effectively render the purpose of downloading completely redundant.
But where did that technical kind of knowledge come from? Was that from your sort of getting involved with satellite TV at the broadcast?
Yeah, it really was, actually. In fact, my first email, I got an email address in 1996, I think, and it was a DNS number. It was just 112.11.221 or something, you know. It didn't have an at in it, and it didn't have any letters.
Is it still active now? Can I send something to it?
I don't know. It was so surreal. And we would start messaging each other with these kind of with these DNS numbers. So yeah, maybe. Yeah, I don't know, maybe it was. Anyway, well, when everybody was out sort of at the end of the NBA getting sort of drunk and partying, I sort of nipped into the administrative office there and unofficially borrowed their photocopier and binding machine for a little while, slapped a fancy cover on the title of this thing and stuck it in half a dozen Jiffy bags and posted it off to various people, like the head of Sony and Universal and a few other places, and Music Week and stuff.
That's
and
amazing.
so I thought this might be of interest to you, and it certainly got a lot of replies.
Really? That's incredible. Because, I mean, you know, that's just, like, if you think, like, if you were an artist, you put your, you know, cassette or mini disc or maybe a CD in a Jiffy bag and send it somewhere.
Yeah.
Right? So they were getting stuff in Jiffy bags all the time. Yet yours arrives and it's sort of A4 size, presumably.
Yeah.
And they're like, what the hell's this?
Yeah.
But
I sent it to the secretaries of the CEOs and stuff, and it had sort of said Imperial College on it and stuff. And,
well, that'll help.
Yeah.
Right? Official stamp.
Official stamp kind of thing. Well, I wasn't really supposed to do that. I remember the dean sort of spoke to me afterwards and said, you're not really supposed to send stuff out without our permission. I said, what was the title of the MBA that I was studying? It was like Entrepreneurship and Innovation. I was like, what are you going to do?
Absolutely.
So, but one guy who called back was a guy called Chris Sheffield, who had created a company called Unite, which he was setting up in Manchester and London as what he called a convergence company.
Right.
So he's very cleverly positioned his offices next to the University Technical Department in Manchester, and was siphoning off hot new developers and designers and coders into his office. And he had coding, web development, design, project management, sort of data coder kind of people. So he said, I really liked your paper. Why don't you sort of see where you can make some money out of the music and entertainment sector. I'll just make you head of that. And here's all these different people. How do you get them doing things and then we'll charge the fees out to clients. And so I developed over the next, it was meteoric really, and we grew the company in 19 months to sale for PLC.
Wow.
Brought it 19 months later for a considerable amount of money. And over those 19 months, I developed some of the first internet radio stations, streaming media players, the concepts of databases that took metadata content and then fed them up through a personalized player on request. So those kind of concepts, really.
Yeah, cool.
And the company sold to a Manchester-based company that wanted to convert all their mail order catalogues into online and interactive TV. We also had an interactive TV license. And so I, at that stage, exited the company. They didn't want to continue doing music-related stuff, and I thought I did. So I grabbed my shares and got out, and I was looking for something to do and for a year, and ended up devising a youth music social enterprise.
Okay.
Where with a colleague or two of mine who were hip hop producers.
Yeah.
And
what was the name of this?
London Urban Collective.
Yes. Okay.
And yeah, we went out to Islington Council, where I was living there at the time in Islington. I thought, well, let's, charity starts at home. Let's go to Islington Council and Arsenal Football Club, and they were building the Emirates at the time.
Right.
So they actually had a little pot of money to help with the community transition around the old Highbury and the new ground. And we ended up getting a little bit of money and launching the project, which took 30 kids from open auditions, designed to last for 1 year while I decided what I was going to do. It ran for 8 years in 5 cities, and more than 700 people through the project. Wow. But as we progressed, we ended up building a recording studio as well as we moved around the country in different community centres. So there was a bit more of a legacy. But yeah, it was a hugely rewarding project, and one which I've seen a number of careers launch since, or really just a really rewarding story is to hear about these young kids who've gone possibly back into education as a result, and then gone on and got jobs doing X and Y.
Yeah.
So over the course of that 8 years, we made loads of projects, and I suppose that leveraged me into education, and just kind of got me doing stuff. I started guest speaking at various universities.
it was like guest lectures. Out in Singapore and things like that.
Started doing guest lectures, and then a lovely lady who passed recently, bless her soul, Debbie Dickinson at City University. She's an amazing lady. She said to me, we've got this course called Making Music Work, but at the moment it doesn't really work. And I was kind of like, well, yeah, it doesn't talk about the internet or anything. It's just, it was kind of written ages ago and they hadn't updated it. Right. So I updated it, and that's when I started writing modules, as they refer to them, right? Okay. So it's kind of like 12 weeks kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then eventually somebody asked if I'd like to write a whole BA, a whole degree, which is really just sort of 16 modules over 3 years, and it's kind of formulaic, I suppose. And launched that and developed that side of things, which gave me a lot of experience in, I suppose, higher education. While I was doing that, I had written an outline for a Masters of Business in Music Business, an MBA, if you like, for the music business. But I was keen not to house it in an academic institution. I thought if we're going to teach this, I'd love to host it somewhere where the industry were buzzing about everywhere, as opposed to just in a college or a university, and then you have to just get people to come in for a couple of hours in an evening as a guest. I wanted it to be embedded in a community. Yeah. And a friend of mine had said, yeah, you've got to check out this place, Tileyard. And this was back in 2015. And it was still reasonably advanced. It was a pretty big community then, not as big as it is now, but I still hadn't heard of it. I was like, where? What are you talking about? There's this community of studios, and it really keeps itself to itself in that respect. But I remember coming up here and meeting Paul and Nick, Michael and Charlie, and they were like, look, we love this idea, but in typical Tileyard fashion, they sort of said, how about this bigger picture? And I was like, it's just one course, how about ...
Yeah.
And so, we launched. We had to wait for a year or so till there was a space available, because you got to. If you do these kind of courses, you've got to make sure students have got their own education building, stuff like that, facilities and all that. So we had to wait for that to come online and then build it and do all of that sort of stuff. But now we're in our third year with a cohort of 75 full-time master students across 5 programs. We're launching programs online, as online blended as well, because you study online, but you also come here to do things like mentoring and songwriting camps and stuff. So it's kind of hybrid. And most excitingly, we're just starting the development on Tileyard North in Wakefield as well. So another centre. So I guess that brings us up to speed.
Yeah, no, it's really good. And you know, amazingly, and I've found this a few times, even though as we discussed earlier, I haven't given you any of the questions, the flow of how I thought this might go is perfect. No, it's great. Good. Yeah, no, it's really good. I mean, you know, and as I said earlier, I'm going to get Nick on at some point. So he's going to kind of do more on like the Tileyard things.
Yeah, because he was really, you know, him and Michael have been very instrumental in that early curation. He's great on all of that.
Yeah. So I don't know if you know this about me, but I'm kind of like one of the first generation of people that was formally educated in the music industry.
Right.
I did a degree course, BA honours degree in music industry management in Bucks.
Oh, Bucks, yeah. And, very good course, yeah.
And ultimately back then, I don't know what it's like now, I haven't looked into it, but it was essentially a business degree that they kind of converted into this music industry. So we were doing kind of some of the traditional stuff like psychology and philosophy and like sort of like straight up economics, like talking about cans of beans and stuff. And then there was like sort of publishing and contract law and venue management and other things like that they kind of, it felt like there was always 2 streams. Like there was that sort of traditional education and then there was kind of like this sort of bit that was a bit more vocational, I suppose.
Right.
So I mean, is how like with Tileyard education, what did you approach it in the same way? Did you think, right, I've got to get these guys a recognised qualification, and therefore I'm going to have to satisfy certain requirements that sort of fall into that? Because that was what we were always told. It was like, if it's a degree, you've got to do certain things. Otherwise, you can't really call it a degree. It's it's something else, like a BTEC or something.
Right, yeah.
Or whatever.
Tileyard, one of the first things I said we would do is map all the things that could be taught and to what age ranges, and then kind of, you know, chuck things out the balloon depending on what did and didn't fit. And we sort of came down to, it's not the right kind of space to have lots of real young'uns running around. You know, it's kind of a pro community. Yeah. It's much more of a practical application community as opposed to a theoretical ethnomusicology kind of academic-y, pedagogic kind of end of the industry.
So there's some words in there I don't understand.
Sorry, okay. So I'm just saying it. We sit at more of a practical end of the market as opposed to just bury your head in theories and research, which totally has its place. It just has its place more in academic institutions than a practical community.
Yeah.
And then so we were kind of left with sort of higher education, and then we weren't going to end up doing the PhD thing because that is the heavy research end.
Yeah.
And we looked at degrees, and because of our agnostic nature, we didn't want to just align with one college, as it were. We wanted to be sort of college agnostic. We didn't really want to compete with any of them in the sort of BA market, and that really sort of left this slither of the master's degree, and that really sort of ticked a lot of boxes. You know, this is a community of masters at work, and the 1-year masters is kind of like it fitted from a sort of brand perspective.
And if you think about it, like sort of, you know, certainly when I finished my BA, the next thing was like, well, what's next? Right?
Exactly, what's next?
And so one option is obviously to go and get the job, but then the next thing would be the masters. So the fact that you've placed it here, where, as you say, there are masters at work, is kind of, I mean, it's just like, from a geographical point of view, if nothing else, makes a lot of sense.
It's a great USP, and you know, it was of all the places that it could have grown out of when I created that course. This is by far the best, by a long shot. I mean, it's the largest professional community, more than 1,300 people on site, and to spend a year not just taught by them, but embedded in amongst their social and active creative lives is the best thing you can get your hands on, really, if this is where you want to go into. And bear in mind, it's not just business MAs that we were created here. So fundamentally, our flagship ones are songwriting, production, and business. So this is a machine of songwriting and production, Tileyard, supported by the business community that range from label, publisher, manager, promoter, agent, manufacturer, distribution, and so on. But right at the heart, just like at the heart of the industry itself, is the song and the production. And there are just under 100 recording studios on this site. Right, and it was this.
Really,
yeah,
I mean,
and they started off. It began, as Nick will tell you, with 10. So that's what came first, the studios, and I think that's the same.
I remember that because I remember people moving from kind of the more traditional spots where people had studios, and everyone was talking about this Tileyard place. Yeah. Everyone's going to Tileyard. So I thought it was just studios at one point.
Well, it was, and that's right, as it should be, really, because first and foremost comes the creative community, and then their agents of exploitation. They're agents of business, if you like. Those initial core food groups, label, publisher, manager, promoter, started to kind of go, maybe it'd be nice to just be near the talent. Oh, have you got the office space? Yes, what do you know, we do. And now 250 companies support that community of 100 studios.
And this is a place that includes Beats One.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
pretty amazing.
That's pretty amazing.
It is. There's
so what it's attracted,
Yeah. But, I mean, it's great to have the big names and stuff, but there is an enormous array of small, fast-moving independents who's doing just amazing specialist work, that's so exciting to be around. Definitely. So anyway, back to the MAs, when we focused on the Masters as potentially the right vehicle to use, it also transpired that the government was bringing online postgraduate student loan at the same time, effectively. We would be, our first cohort, were we to launch it back then, would have been the first cohort where people were able to get hold of a postgraduate student loan. So it was opening up a new market that didn't really exist before, because the Masters was very much the provision of somebody who could afford to pay the fees for it, and not just the fees but the living expense, because doing a Masters in 1 year is a pretty tough gig. It's a lot of work. So
it's normally
doing that and a job and everything else on top, or family life, it can become really intense. So to be supported by the postgraduate student loan, I knew was going to open up a whole new market. And in many ways we position ours as the fourth year that really makes a difference. So rather than a 3-year BA, it's that fourth year of study. It gets you an MA, it gets you connected with the industry, it embeds you into a community where you're going to have the fastest odds of rolling from graduation into employment in one way, shape or form. On top of the fact that we teach that our industry are portfolio entrepreneur freelance specialists. We actually asked, it's got sort of 50 to 100 of the people here, how many independent sources of income do they have, and the average was 6. So there are 6 in mutually exclusive and independent sources of incomes that creative freelancers have as their regular. You've got a studio and you rent it out to other people. You produce for your own name, which is maybe you've got 1 or even 2 brands under your own name. You are producing for other people. When you're not producing, maybe you're co-writing, and then possibly you're teaching, or then you're on tour and doing services like that, and then possibly you're managing another artist. And there's 7 right there. And then you've got your PRS and PPL kind of income streams. That's 8 stuff coming in. And if you're successful at it, it's not long before brands start to get involved as well, especially if you're supporting all of that activity with social media engagement. And your Insta followers or your what other followers are broad enough for brands to kind of go, can we talk to your audience?
Of course.
That's 9 streams. So it's not long before you start seeing how having one space that you can maybe collectivize or share with other day renters or whatever brings you into easily your second hand, 6-7 sources of income.
I saw. One of the first interviews I did was with a DJ producer called Scott Diaz, based down in Brighton. And he kind of took me through all the different things that he's doing. And I mean, one of the things that stood out for him was the fact that he was involved in sort of sample creation. So he was creating those samples from scratch. And then because I sort of said, what would you do? Kind of soup to nuts. And it was, he just kept talking. It was just stuff. it was just this sort of long list, and I was like, oh,
it's incredible how many hats people wear when you independently create and produce and market and digitally distribute and shore up with live performance or little bits of video content to support it, remixes, you name it. It's a big gig, but people can do it now. That's ultimately what that piece was that I wrote about back in '98. It's the long tail, really, what Chris Anderson was talking about, right? So we are all effectively in this infinite long tail where we have to do is learn how to use those tools, but we all have them at our disposal. We have a recording studio, we can mix it down, we can create the website, all the social media, we can upload and online distribute, we can create video, design stuff, talk to our fans, and ultimately give them a link to somewhere where they can buy service.
This is fast becoming a masterclass, so I appreciate it. So we first met
with Ingrooves
through PJ. Through PJ,
who was one of the original crew back in '98 with all of that stuff going on.
Absolutely, and I desperately...
And Steve Mayle and Paul Brindley,
of course, Music Ally, I'm desperately trying to get PJ on this.
Yeah,
but he'd
be great.
He'd be great. He doesn't think so, but I think I think he's wrong. And you had invited me down to come and see some of the kids at the Urban Collective to talk about digital distribution. I do remember walking away from it thinking I really should have prepared for that because they are a super smart bunch. But what I think, like for me, obviously having come out of education, was what I liked about what you'd done is that there was this focus on sort of practicing what you preach, as in what you preach, and they are practicing it. And so just because I think it's a good example, that whole kind of Inferno hip opera.
Oh gosh,
just walk us through that for a second, because I think it was a super interesting project that you did.
We have been doing Urban Collective for 3 years. I think we were into our 4th year, and we had made straight up albums. Just got kids together, made a whole album, and it was great. And sometimes there was a thematic. In 2006, by default, it was the year of the London bombings and stuff, and everyone got quite political about their stuff, so it turned into quite a political album. But there wasn't any agenda as such to do so. But when we got to the 4th year, we thought it'd be nice if we layered some sort of interpretation of literature over the top. And originally I wanted to do the 3 Penny Opera, but I wrote to the Kurt Weill Foundation and said, "Hi, Urban Collective here, we'd love to do a hip-hop version of the 3 Penny Opera," and got this really snotty letter back saying, "Do you know who we are?" kind of thing. "You can't, sully the work of Kurt Weill in such a hideous fashion. No, you may not convert it, And so I was like, oh, right, okay, then fine, better find another subject. And I was like, well, what's out of copyright? And I went, hang on, moments in sort of 1 o'clock in the morning. And it went downstairs, and by 7 o'clock in the morning had the complete sort of outline of Virgil and Dante sort of meeting on the streets of London circa 2004, and him taking him through the various layers and gates of hell, where they encountered the various 7 deadly sins. And when you added up all the various figures or characters that came into play, what do you know? It was about the same number of people as the auditions to get into the collective.
Serendipity.
Yeah. There were about sort of 25 or 30 parts in it. And I thought, okay, why don't we try it? And when we were doing auditions, we just sort of said, how would you feel about being given, if you like, a brief for how you might want to write your song? Let's say I said to you, I gave you a brief on gluttony or lust or envy or something. Would you be happy with that? They're like, yeah, I can write to anything, Yeah. So I was like, okay. We did. We found the collective with our in mind. That person would be great for this, or that person would be great for that. Guess casting it. Anyway, just shooting, but we weren't having to shoot sound obviously because we'd already made the album, so it was much easier to just kind of point a camera and have them, boombox in the background with the track playing, and they're kind of miming it, and then we overlaid it later, so it was quite easy to shoot from a production point of view.
That's kind of like how hip hop, like music videos are done today.
Yeah, I mean, it's no different. Any music video, when you're going to go out and shoot there, you're not actually taking the live music, we've already got that bit. So in many respects, it was easy for us to be sort of guerrilla shooting around town, as it were. And we put together the piece. It ended up as sort of 47 minutes. It's quite long. We're like, wow, it's almost like a feature film,
Ding!
Yeah, right. Anyway, so we put it together and we did our screening. We partnered up with the Odeon on the Holloway Road, and the friends and family came to see it. It was an amazing experience. It was so lovely. But then there was this website at the time called Without a Box, where you could create a profile and upload your synopsis and possibly a clip to film festivals around the world. A bit like the gig kind of one, where you create a profile and you can try and find yourself gigs at places. Sonic Bits.
Yeah.
A bit like Sonic Bits. There's another one. There's a few of them, right?
Yeah.
It was like the film version of that.
Yeah.
And I was searching, and I thought, the hip hop film festivals. I was like, wow, the Chicago International Hip Hop Film Festival. Yeah, man, Chicago, that's cool. And so I paid my $10 and submitted the thing. Never heard anything. And a few months went by, and I get this email saying you've been nominated for Best Narrative Short in the Chicago International Hip Hop Film Festival. Here's the details, and like, this is the date it's on, here's some hotels and whatnot. And I emailed the guy and I said, well, really? This is crazy, isn't it?
That sort of sounds like one of those things where you had a few drinks one night, you went on eBay, you bought something,
and then you realise it arrives.
Like, what was it? What happened?
Why have I got this large polystyrene elephant? Exactly. It was kind of like that. But I emailed the guy and said, look, are you for real? Because I could probably speak to some of the local funders and maybe bring a few of the young people out with me and stuff. This would be a lifetime experience for them. And he goes, absolutely, we're serious. Just really think what you've done is incredible. And always had this young ambassadors kind of program where they give you a return flight if you were representing your country or something. Representing on hip hop was brilliant. And out we went with a few of the people, and we won. We won the award.
That's amazing.
Maybe he was just like, kind of, oh my god, they came the whole way. Imagine if they don't win. But we did win it anyway.
And I did find on YouTube a kind of like sort of direct to camera thing that you were doing with one of the lads. And it was a kind of before and after, and you were sort of there before the show, and then you
about 9 films in the category, and they made you watch parts of each one. And as they kept rolling, we were like, we're not going to win. We're not going to win. We're not going to win. This is terrible. Quickly sneak out now before it's too late.
There's a moment of you sitting in the hotel room talking about this, just going, really good.
I know. It was one of those moments. Definitely, we were trying to sort of sleep down in the seats and eventually try and get out before they announced anything. But anyway, so that was great, and that led us to get further funding, which we did other projects with. In fact, we ended up doing the second part. We ended up doing Purgatory, but this time hosting it on the stage in partnership with the Pleasance Theatre, which was a phenomenal experience. But it really gave young people the experience to not just the recording, but the other bits of production that come with it as well. Where in terms of Purgatory, did with 13 straight nights, so it was kind of like, wow, coming in every day and getting ready, doing your makeup, getting ready on stage, the intricacy of the show, and then off you go, and then tomorrow you've got to come back and do it all again in front of a different audience. It's amazing experience.
It was fascinating. I think that was around the time when we first met.
Did you see Purgatory?
I've seen bits of it.
It's a great show. It's really good.
No, amazing. So let's talk, I think, a little bit more generally about the sort of the education process. So you've mentioned a few of these things, so we don't need to kind of like labour it too much. But I'm curious about the syllabus creation. Now you've talked about this modular concept, which kind of makes sense. But like, where do those modules come from?
We actually don't. We don't follow a traditional approach at all. Actually, come to think of it, our modules are term based. And we sort of brand our terms: foundation, development, and then creation. And then within each term, what other people refer to as modules, we refer to as disciplines. So we teach a bunch of disciplines, whether that's economics and finance planning, whether it's project management, marketing, new technology, live events, a whole range of stuff, campaign stuff. It sort of gets blended into the term, and then we assess the whole term. We don't assess by a particular subject, because that allows you the freedom to create assessments which are holistic. Because let's face it, if we have to run a campaign, we're not just going, no, for the next 2 hours, all I am doing is this, then all I am doing is that. And I can't think of things I can only think of things in compartments. It's not realistic. So instead we look at case studies and real world scenarios taught by people who are literally, this is what I'm working on at the moment, or this is what I just did last month. And so the students being masters level 7, independent learning and research, critical evaluation are the key components of that, have to then extrapolate from those things the bits that they will then put into the components of their assessment. So, for instance, a term 1 assessment here might include a 3,000 word portfolio, a 3,000 word essay, a 20-minute presentation, and some sort of digital poster or some artifacts of some sort.
Right.
But there's nothing specific that says this assessment is about economics, or this assessment is providing is an essay on marketing or something.
Yeah,
so we took that approach under the guidance of one of our university partners, and they said, look, this is working really well for us, how about this? And it has been brilliant. It's been really, really good. In fact, business is the only one that at the moment isn't subscribing in that way, but it's about to be flipped into that as well.
Yeah, I mean, it must be difficult. I mean, I guess it sort of goes back to this sort of mix of like the sort of the practical and the more traditional sort of forms of education, and you're obviously finding new ways of mixing that together by, as you say, like not just kind of focusing on one thing and getting somebody to do a project on one particular discipline. It's like, no, think about this in a real life situation. Right?
Yeah.
How would you execute on this?
Exactly, and obviously it's very practical as well. So as I said, our flagship MAs are commercial songwriting and commercial music producer. Business students and marketing students get involved with them, but those MAs have writing camps, live writing camps in them, one each term. And they also have Brief of the Week, which are live commercial briefs which sort of come at you in your inbox every week.
Okay.
So the writing camps are a complete mix of a whole range of different people from different disciplines, putting together in rooms, sometimes working with established producers and writers as well. You jump out of class, even it's in class, it's like in the week of the term, it's not extracurricular. It happens as part of study, but it's practical study. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that, which is integral, really, which is very sort of non-traditional class based, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
very good. So it's sort of working in the music industry at the time. I grew up in the country, didn't know anyone in the big city. London was pretty much where the music industry was. I had no idea how to get in. I mean, short of, I did this, writing off to record companies sort of randomly, going, hi, I'm a young person who would like to come and work for free for you. And then just getting like no letters. I'm like, well, they're not even going to let me in if I work for free. How the hell am I going to sort of break that sort of vicious circle? Because they need people with experience, right? So fortunately, that course came up, and that was kind of my route in. But for me, it was, I only used it to get into the music industry to get that job. Like that was, don't get me wrong, I appreciated education and the value that it had, and I knew that I didn't know a bunch of stuff.
Sure.
So to actually learn some very specific stuff about the industry I wanted to go into was a bonus. But almost like I was just using it as a sort of a gateway into the
There's nothing wrong with that.
The end game. But why do you think, like, given like how kind of advanced these things are these days, right? And I think it's a bit more like, I think people are more aware, like the sort of careers advisors at the sort of school age would be like, oh right, you're interested. Like I have a son, he's 17, he just going through all this kind of with him, and they're much more aware of like all the different options, and they'll sit and they'll kind of like really help sort of guide you in the right direction. But why when people come to your courses, what are they there for? Are they there to learn, or are they there to kind of get qualified? Or,
they're definitely there to learn. I think if it's from a business, marketing, a songwriting or production perspective, there's a lot of people who are masters of their craft here. You're getting a lot of real world top tips. A lot of the producers and songwriters say the amount of tips I'm learning, the clever ways of shortcutting things or doing things to expand a mix, or clever ways of intricately bringing songwriting technique into a track to
finesse.
Finesse things and get us better. Those kind of things, they say, are a real plus here, because there are so many practitioners who are basically, I've just spent the last 15 years doing this day in, day out. Here's some tips. So there's that bit. There's the route to jobs, of course, because for songwriters and producers, the portfolio entrepreneurs, a brief is a job. So we have brief of the week from sort of day one of study. So, and on the songwriting camps, they're all live briefs. So we've had plenty of examples of current students who've answering briefs and getting the gig, and that gives you some nice return, and also it doesn't just give you the initial income and the residual, but it cements the relationship with the publisher partner normally, who's been the gatekeeper to the gig, and like put that person on a writing camp, give them some collaborations, let's see what happens next. So there's that route. For the business students, where there's like a voluntary work placement scheme in the second term as well, that there is opportunities for them to make connections, do stuff, actually find out which companies they want to work for, reach out to them with the cover letter and CV, get placed for anywhere from a few days to a few weeks, and start making those contacts. Academically, I think people also, you're not really you're not percentage chasing in any kind of way on what kind of MA am I going to get, because there's an MA and there's an MA. No one ever asked, what type of MA did you get? Did you get a first? No, it's just like you've got a master's, right? No one really ever asks.
Well, because it's like you've bothered to go to that extent.
You've gone to, you've just got a master's, okay? So you've done a master's.
That says something about who you are,
right? So, but there are people who I think, consider there's a lot of people out there with BAs and a lot of people out there with degrees. The master's gives you that next sort of lift up, and people, I think, quite a lot of employers do recognise now what a master's means, that it is in itself critically evaluating and critically analysing objectively a particular specialist field on your own, independently. So you're the kind of person who doesn't need to be handheld in the first phase of a job or whatever. You could kind of like go, you're the kind of employee that thinks broader, critically evaluates situations, maybe manages things under tight timeline or tight budget line, which other people might find quite stressful. Maybe they have a bit more resilience to managing things like that, calmer or in a more objective way. And that can be the bottom line for creative companies who are on a tight margin. So in that respect, I think people see it as like a ticket to that.
So this is interesting, right? So I mean, I think it's fair to say, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the music industry of old, there were a lot of people in very senior positions there that were effectively chancers, right? They had come at it from the point of view of, I love music, I'm going to go and do something. Now they were either managers, they ended up being heads of record companies, or A&R people that took the same route. Whereas, do you think it's a case that as you, like people like yourself, kind of push these courses into the mainstream, and more people come out as a product of that eventually we'll see a change where the people who are at the top are far more educated themselves. So when they're looking at hiring and they're looking at the hiring strategy, they're thinking much more about, as you say, like people that are capable of performing at a certain level, right? But whereas I think before, like, you could just kind of walking off the street and just go, hey, look,
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily. I think chances is possibly a bit derogatory. Certainly entrepreneurial.
I was trying to be a incendiary.
Chances and blaggers and entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs who. But absolutely, maybe so. But and maybe because it had something to do with the, through vinyl on into tape and then on into CD. There was the best part of, I suppose, 2/3 of a century that, the format changed, but the mechanism behind it was pretty much the same. It was just another format, another piece of hardware, another piece of software. It just got better each time, from vinyl.
Apart from cassettes.
Well, I don't know. Cassettes brought portability in for the first time.
Okay,
I mean, the Walkman, man, it was the greatest thing ever. It's like, hang on a minute, when was the last time you saw somebody jogging with a vinyl player on their back? It's like, now you can move with your music and take it portable. So there was a huge plus about that, and also the whole kind of like, I'm going to make a mixtape for my loved one copy all those tracks, write out all the track list inside. I used to love that. I used to listen to Top of the Pops and then write out all the top 20 or whatever it was on mine.
Likewise.
It's just great, right? So no, I love CD, but tape rather. But then, through all of those formats, the process and the mechanism of that vertical model I was talking about, largely, to the largest extent, controlled by the major companies, because ultimately they're the ones that owned that value chain. things didn't really change. So maybe in many respects there was just a way of doing things that was people assimilated to, and it was the advance of new technology and the continued advance of new technology that has continued to twist and turn and drive change that ultimately I think is the result of people wanting to be educated at a higher level about what this means, and of course to understand that crux of the problem, or crux of the issue, which is that our industry has become more of a service sector-led, horizontal kind of landscape, as opposed to this traditional vertical food chain that was pretty much stuck in its own way very successfully by owning just the whole mechanism to consumer. Well, now we have to think totally differently. Yeah. So in order to master those skills, you do need to understand a new range of technologies that hopefully people like us are quite good at imparting.
Well, I was going to ask you about how, in terms of like teaching methods as well, like how I mean, it must be very hard to kind of not only find ways of engaging with perhaps a segment of age demographic that technology they're sort of they grew up with it, right? You and I didn't really grow up with it in the same way that it is today, right? Yeah. I remember I had a ZX81,
right? Like I remember that
1K computer.
Yeah,
I mean, I had to program my own games, type of thing, right? So that was
MS-DOS.
100%. Like there was like the concept of UI and UX were definitely missing from our early sort of computer experiences, and so. Obviously, you've got a lot of students that they grew up with, touch screens and sort of everything from there on in, right? And as a teacher, I guess having to sort of teach in a way that makes sense to them, because to give them a textbook is not as engaging, right? Did you feel a pressure to do that?
I don't know. Maybe we just develop stuff with the technology we have. We're very, we have a recording studio and tech labs and writing rooms, and as well as just the fact we only have one classroom compared to all the other types of rooms we have. So some stuff needs to be kind of, I suppose, lecture, chalk and talk, and feedback style, traditional style.
Do you use like the smart boards that are kind of like big?
I mean, we project presentations. I don't actually own a smart board. I looked at them, but instead we just our tutors, use presentations or links to videos. And we're in a studio, so we're hearing sound and twiddling knobs and all that sort of stuff.
They have in my daughter's school, and I can't help but think it's a slightly over-engineered concept.
The smart board, it totally is. I went somewhere once that had one. I was like, and then it never worked. So it's kind of like, so I ended up just using it with whiteboard marker anyway.
Much, I'm sure somebody's discussed.
Somebody's
probably paying for it.
Yeah.
Okay, now there's a question about my podcast. How do you think I can help with this? So what I've got this into. Interesting to hear you talk about. So I've got kind of different sort of strands. I've got the basics. I do something on lifestyle. I do some current affairs stuff, although admittedly not as much as I thought I might.
Yeah.
And then I have this sort of disciplines thing, which is what this falls into.
Okay.
So I mean that's kind of how I structured it. I wanted to make it sort of so you could navigate through, like if you weren't interested in this or you felt like you knew enough, and therefore you could kind of skip the basics, right? Like one of the basics was about physical products, and and I was just sort of talking about kind of that as a sort of a thing. Sure. So I mean, what do you think something like this could do? Because I mean, the medium of podcasts is a great way of learning, right? Because you can kind of break things into.
It is. We're pioneering a lot of sort of online blended learning at the moment, which we shoot a lot of video. We have interactive exercises, so here's what the person needs you to do, and then you've got some time to create it and upload it, and then our tutors can look at that in their inbox and give feedback by pressing the reply button, and their camera comes on, so they can quickly give some video feedback and send, and it's an easy way for people who are in the middle of a mix or doing something to take a break and answer a few questions, then get back to it again, that kind of thing. And obviously using Slack type technologies where you can create threads of conversation and throw in images or other stuff. Our students have VLEs, which all universities have now, these virtual learning environments where you can find out what class you got and download documents, and you could do little timed exercises and things like that on there. There's a whole range of stuff that we use in that area.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, maybe I'll look at doing some of those things.
Well, feedback, I would say, is a really good one. What people want is to ask a question. Probably your audience might have questions for key people. I've got a question for a producer. I've got a question for a label owner. I've got a question for a manager. And then they can give audio or simple feedback very easily from wherever they are. Just send it to you. And there could be... It's like what we do with the online MA is we actually give one of the assessments to maybe 7 or 8 producers with the same questions. So we're coming to film you, we're just going to ask one question: how would you tackle that assessment? And then there's no right answer, it's just lots of different ways, and different producers do with their rig and setup do things in different ways. So we've got like eight or different approaches to how you might tackle the assessment, but we're not telling the student how to do it.
Interesting.
So that's where it's quite if I was a producer, I'd want to hear how each different producer tackled the same thing, and then kind of go, which one am I most like? Or I'll steal a bit of that way and a bit of that and a bit of that. But you've still got to then go and do the assessment. So we like to that kind of interaction. Maybe some of your audience kind of like, I'd love to get some feedback on this question from someone who does sync, or whatever.
Well, I mean, and that's kind of what I'm hoping to, sort of turn. I've had a little bit of that so far. I try and use Twitter just because it feels like that's a good medium. So I've had a little bit through that, and then of course, you just kind of get DMs through Instagram, Facebook pages, and LinkedIn, of course. So there's been a little bit. I kind of want to encourage that because I think that dialogue is really important. Because of course, there's normally somebody in my network that I can kind of bring in and do another episode on that. Hopefully, then sort of answers some of the questions. So that's kind of okay. So we're nearly at the end.
Oh,
which is great.
Gosh,
which is really good. So
hammering it out.
I had a question about how do you try and stay up to date with what's going on in the music industry, or do you just kind of not ignore it, but like don't worry too much about it because you're kind of focusing on more like core subjects, like this is what publishing is and this is kind of how you approach it, or is it hard? Because it's changing a lot.
Depends
right?
what you mean by keeping up to date with things. You mean the way that new technologies are influencing the way the industry works and stuff? I mean, I think, for instance, I mean, we that changes every year in modules like My One, Industry Landscape, or in Zoe's new technology for creative industries, for instance. Most recently we had Chaz Jenkins in talking about Chartmetric, and
I've got to get him on. I'm going to write a note.
And then Lucy, actually, who works here, she's given what happens when you load up the Facebook ad generator and you actually have to input all the details for a campaign.
Right.
So she takes one of our international songwriting camps as an idea, as a case study. Go, well, this is how we got 38 people, at sort of 800 quid a go, coming on an international campaign. But there's a lot of detail in the Facebook ad manager and the Google ad management stuff. So how do you create sales funnel pipeline stuff, and how do you manage ads, respond to changes in the way that ads are being perceived, A/B stuff, and all that kind of thing. I mean, you might consider those leading and cutting edge ways of conducting business in the lean environment. And so we do things like that. We're constantly looking at, and Rota, your partner's a great example, what Diarmuid's doing in the ability of Rota Video for young creative entrepreneurs to upload their own footage, to use pre-cleared archive footage, to chop and change and add lyrics and do stinger videos, and to literally create an entire music video in the time the algorithm just takes to sort of go from 0 to 100% to process it. It's insane. It's amazing.
I was just on a call just before, and there's so much exciting stuff coming.
It's incredible, right? So Diarmuid comes in and talks about Rota, and Chaz talks about Chartmetric and the power of data, and Lucy's talking about the sales funnel pipeline stuff, and we're staying right on the cutting edge of that side of things. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Wonderful, excellent. So you sort of mentioned a few things earlier on, but just run through them again. What's the future for Talia Education?
We are in the process of launching a suite of our MAs online as online blended. So MA Commercial Music Producer is now live and has its first cohort. Is that like a sort of
cheaper version of the course because it's just online?
It is slightly less. It comes in at about $1,000 less, and it's designed for people who want to. Anyway, it's designed for people who want to either they don't live in London and they don't want to move, or
Really
a possibility in
broad
that.
and,
Really
scope,
broad.
yeah.
And so business is coming up next. We're going to do music business online, international music marketing, and then eventually songwriting online as well. What next? We are developing a new site, Tileyard North, on a 100,000 square foot facility, which is a collection of 7 beautiful Grade 2 listed red brick mill buildings on the banks of the Calder in Wakefield, which is just 10 minutes from Leeds. Is a fabulous town. It's got a steeped and loads of history, and yeah, these buildings are just going to convert into the most amazing collection of studios, production suites, offices. We've got a hotel going in there. There's a massive live event space happening there, brewery, all that kind of stuff. And it's right next to the Hepworth Museum, which was Museum of the Year last year. Stunning building. So very excited about launching education up north. With our suite of courses, we'll be launching in, at the moment it's looking like September 21, so the start of the academic year of 2021. And there's a couple of other sort of sites that we're looking at on the horizon as well, and just keeping on doing what we're doing, really. Just keeping on connecting people who want to learn about these skills and crafts, and connect with industry, which is really our kind of USP here.
Yeah, brilliant. That all sounds incredibly ambitious, but brilliant at the same time.
Just got to keep going.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. This
Pleasure.
has
It's been really good. It's
a
good talking
real
to you.
learning experience, and very, very interesting. Thank you so much. So, to my listeners, thank you for listening. I welcome all feedback, comments, and suggestions for future shows. My Twitter handle is @AlexBranson. Just put podcast DM in a message, and I'll follow you back, and we have a direct dialogue. Or go to the website www.abcmusic.co, and you'll find a contacts page there where you can drop me an email. Thank you once again, Harry.
Thank you.